Armin was the type of man everyone envied. At just 32, he had it all: money, looks, and power. The son of a successful businessman, he inherited an empire and expanded it with his sharp mind. To outsiders, he seemed perfect. But inside, Armin carried arrogance and pride that blinded him to the deeper values of life. One evening, while drinking with his group of rich friends in a private club, the conversation turned into mockery. Armin, one of his friends teased, "With all your wealth and charm, any woman in this city would throw herself at you." Armin smirked. "Of course. Beauty is easy to get when you're rich." Another friend, half drunk, sneered. "But could you win over someone completely opposite of what you desire? A woman who's not beautiful, not slim, not rich, someone ordinary, maybe even fat and poor." The group laughed. But Armin leaned forward, his pride burning. "Of course I could. Women are all the same. They all want money, status, comfort. Even the poorest would say yes if I offered marriage." "Prove it," the friend challenged. "Marry a poor fat woman, live with her, treat her like a wife. If she falls for you, you win. If not, you admit you're not as irresistible as you think." Armin, driven by ego, raised his glass. "Fine, I'll do it." And that was the night his life took a turn he never expected. Her name was Mare. She was 28, living in a small, rundown neighborhood. She worked as a tailor, earning barely enough to support her widowed mother and younger sister. Mare had grown up being called names: fat, ugly, unworthy. Society had made her believe she didn't deserve love. Still, she carried a quiet dignity, a gentle smile, and a heart full of kindness. Armin's friends pointed her out. She wasn't glamorous, she wasn't fashionable, just a simple woman struggling to survive. Perfect for the bet, they laughed. Armin approached her under the pretense of charity. At first, Mare was suspicious. Why would a millionaire show interest in her? But his persistence, his charming words, and his offers of a better life slowly broke down her walls. Within months, Armin proposed marriage. Her mother wept with joy, believing God had finally blessed their family. Mare hesitated, but deep inside, her lonely heart longed to be chosen, to be loved. She said yes. And the wedding that followed shocked the entire city. On their wedding day, Mare wore a simple red dress. She didn't have the perfect body, but her eyes glowed with hope. Armin stood beside her, handsome in his designer suit, pretending to be in love while his friends smirked in the background, waiting for the game to unfold. At first, life in the mansion was overwhelming for Mare. Servants whispered behind her back. Society women mocked her figure. She felt out of place in Armin's luxurious world. But still, she tried. She cooked his favorite meals, arranged his office files late at night, and prayed silently for his happiness. She treated everyone with humility, even those who mocked her. Armin, meanwhile, kept his distance. He told himself it was just a bet. Yet, every time he saw her kneel to tie his shoelaces, or sit quietly stitching clothes for the servants' children, something stirred inside him. Still, his pride wouldn't let him admit it. Weeks turned into months. The friends who had made the bet grew impatient. "Has she fallen in love with you yet?" they teased. Armin shrugged. Of course, women always do. But deep down, he wasn't sure. One night, Armin came home drunk from a business party. Mare waited, worried. She held his arm, helped him to bed, and whispered, "Please take care of yourself. Your health matters more than your money." Her words pierced him. No woman had ever cared for him like that, without asking for anything in return. Slowly, he began to notice her more. Her laughter when she played with neighborhood kids. Her quiet prayers for his safety. Her strength when she carried groceries up 3 flights of stairs for her mother. She wasn't glamorous. She wasn't what society called beautiful. But she had a beauty that radiated from the soul, a beauty Armin had never seen before. But the truth has a way of coming out. One evening, Mare overheard Armin's friends laughing during a party. "So, how's the bet, wife?" they mocked. Still pretending to be a husband. The world collapsed around her. She realized her marriage, her hopes, her dreams, they were all built on a cruel game. Tears streaming down her face, Mare confronted Armin. "Was I just a joke to you? A bet? Did you marry me only to prove something to your friends?" Armin's silence was answer enough. Broken, Mare packed her bags and left the mansion that very night, returning to her old life with nothing but pain in her heart. For the first time in his life, Armin felt empty. The mansion was silent without her laughter. The meals felt tasteless without her care. The parties felt meaningless without her presence. Days turned into weeks. He couldn't focus on business. He couldn't sleep at night. Everywhere he looked, he saw her face, her kindness, her strength, her tears. Finally, he admitted the truth to himself: he had fallen in love. Not with her looks, not with her body, but with her heart. And now, he had to win her back. Armin went to her small home, but Mare refused to see him. She had been humiliated, her trust shattered. "You don't get to play with my life and then say sorry," she told him, tears burning her eyes. But Armin didn't give up. He sold his expensive car and used the money to fund a sewing center for poor women, honoring the work she had always done. He donated to her community, built a library for children, and started living humbly, showing her he had truly changed. Little by little, Mare saw his sincerity. He no longer came with arrogance, but with humility. He no longer boasted about money, but spoke of values, kindness, and love. One evening, in front of her mother, her sister, and the entire neighborhood, Armin knelt before Mare, not with a diamond ring, but with a simple handmade bracelet he had crafted himself. "I was a fool. I married you for the wrong reasons. But along the way, I discovered what real love is. Not beauty, not wealth, but a heart like yours. Please, give me one chance to prove I am worthy of you." Mare's eyes filled with tears. She saw the man before her was no longer the arrogant millionaire, but a humbled soul who had learned the value of true love. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. Their story became one of inspiration. Society that once mocked Mare now admired her strength. She taught women that self-worth doesn't come from looks or wealth, but from dignity and kindness. Armin transformed his business empire into projects that uplifted the poor. Together, they built schools, sewing centers, and shelters for women who had been ridiculed like Mare. And as the years passed, their love only grew stronger. What began as a cruel bet ended as the greatest blessing of Armin's life. Months after reconciling, Armin and Mare moved into a modest home, away from the towering mansion that once symbolized his pride. They wanted a fresh start. But even as they built a life together, the shadows of the past refused to disappear. Everywhere they went, whispers followed. "That's the woman he married as a bet. She's still fat, how can he love her? She doesn't belong in his world." Mare heard them, though she pretended she didn't. Armin noticed her smile dim whenever strangers mocked her. He clenched his fists, angry at the world for judging the woman who had saved his soul. But no matter what society said, he held her hand tighter every time. The business world was not forgiving. Armin's investors, once impressed by his wealth and charisma, began questioning his decisions. "Your wife doesn't fit the image of our brand," one board member sneered. "A woman like her cannot represent the company. She makes us look weak." For the first time, Armin faced a choice: protect his business reputation or protect his wife's dignity. He slammed his hand on the table. "You don't get to decide who's worthy of respect. My wife isn't just my partner, she's the heart of everything I stand for now. If you can't see that, maybe I don't need you in my company." That day, he lost investors, but gained something far greater: Mare's trust. Instead of focusing on luxury projects, Armin redirected his wealth toward people like Mare, those whom society ignored. He opened sewing centers, schools, and shelters for underprivileged women. Mare became the face of the movement. She stood proudly in front of crowds, sharing her story. At first, her voice trembled, but Armin stood beside her, whispering, "You're stronger than you think." Soon, women who had been mocked for their looks, their size, their poverty, began flocking to her for hope. Mare wasn't just a wife anymore. She was a leader, a symbol of resilience. But not everyone was happy. The same friends who once made the cruel bet returned, bitter and envious. Their own lives were empty, built on shallow pleasures. Seeing Armin and Mare happy filled them with rage. One night, they confronted Armin at a charity gala. "You've changed," they mocked. "All this for a woman who doesn't even fit the role of a millionaire's wife. Admit it, Armin, you regret choosing her." Before Armin could speak, Mare stepped forward. Her eyes burned with strength. "I may not have your definition of beauty. But I have something you'll never have: peace. Because my worth doesn't come from looks, or wealth, or cruel bets. It comes from the love I give and the life I build." The hall erupted in applause. And for the first time, Armin saw his wife standing taller than all the people who once mocked her. Years passed. Their love deepened, but life tested them in harsher ways. One day, Mare fell seriously ill. The doctors warned that her weight combined with stress had affected her heart. Armin stayed by her side in the hospital, refusing to leave even for business meetings. In those moments of fear, he realized something profound. All the money in the world meant nothing if he lost her. He prayed, something he hadn't done in years. He begged God not for wealth, not for success, but for her life. When Mare finally opened her eyes after surgery, Armin wept like a child. Holding her hand, he whispered, "I once married you for the wrong reasons. But today, I live for one reason only, you." Mare recovered, but her illness became a turning point. Together, she and Armin launched campaigns about self-worth, health, and inner beauty. They encouraged people not to chase perfection but to cherish life as it is. Soon, their story spread beyond their city, on television, newspapers, and social media. People who once mocked Mare now praised her courage. She became a voice for every woman who had been told she wasn't enough. And Armin. He finally understood that true wealth wasn't counted in millions but in moments of love, sacrifice, and faith. One evening, sitting under the stars in their garden, Mare leaned on Armin's shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. Armin smiled, kissing her forehead. "Regret marrying you? Never. If I hadn't made that foolish bet, I would have never found the greatest treasure of my life, you." Mare closed her eyes, her heart full. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel judged, mocked, or unwanted. She felt cherished, honored, and loved. Their story became a legend, not of a cruel bet, but of redemption, forgiveness, and a love that rewrote destiny.